lecture of English. This is Mrunal Malve from Prabhat Grade School. Before starting today's lecture, I have an activity for you. I have some words. Using them, you have to make a meaningful sentence. Remember, you have to arrange those words in a proper order, but you can't take any extra word from your own. Okay? So, should we start? So, the words are Ramesh in success and sports studies. Is it possible to make a meaningful sentence from given words? I have given you 6 words. Could you make a sentence by using them? No. And why couldn't? Because it has no verb. Now take the 7th word, achieves or achieved, or gets or got, and see where it has to put. It suits only after the noun, which is the subject of the sentence. Like Ramesh achieves success in sports and studies, or Ramesh achieved success in sports and studies, or we can say Ramesh gets success in sports and studies. Now the word we used is acting word, which gives us meaningful sentence. It is called verb. Verb shows action, tense and add meaning to a sentence. Now we would see the definition of verb given in the book. A verb is a word that tells us what a noun or subject does in a sentence. It also tells us about an event or action. Dear students, verb being the indispensable word in a sentence, grammar revolves around it. In the first part of this lesson, we are going to see whether the verb is transitive or intransitive. Then we are going to see what are incomplete verbs, what are infinite verbs and what are finite verbs, different auxiliary verbs and modal verbs. Dear students, I hope you have your notebook with you for taking important points. The portion we are studying is most vital for improving our language and avoid common silly mistakes. So, let's start with transitive and intransitive verbs. We know the basic structure of a sentence. A sentence has subject, verb and an object. For example, Ram brings fruit. Ram is subject, brings is verb, while fruits is an object. Now suppose we simply put Ram brings. Does it complete its sense? No. It requires the name. What does Ram bring? It is a fruit. There are some verbs that requires an object to make its sense complete. These verbs are called transitive verbs. Just see. The boy raises. But what? Still unanswered. It must have an object like hand or doubt or question or query. Like the boy raises his hand, or the boy raises a doubt, or the boy raises a query. Thus, raise is a transitive verb because it requires an object to make its sense complete. These transitive verbs have direct or indirect object, as in the following examples. I gave him a penny. My friend gave me a flower, etc. Hope you have understood transitive verbs. Now, let's see intransitive verbs. It does not require an object to complete its sense. That is to say that subject plus verb are enough to complete its sense. For example, I walk, she runs fast, she is talking. These sentences do not require any object for completing their meaning. Now we are going to see incomplete verbs. These verbs tell us about the state rather than about an action. For example, seem, be, appear, look, etc. See the sentences. Vedant seems. appears. Sita is. Here is a form of to be. These incomplete verbs require complement to make their meaning complete. Now we put complement. Sita is happy. Vedant seems sad. It appears doubtful. Now these sentences complete their sense with proper complement. Now these complements are of two types. Firstly, subject complement. Secondly, object complement. For example, Dr. Thakur is highly skilled. Here, highly skilled is subject complement. Why it is subject complement? Because it is the complement for the subject Dr. Thakur. It seems hazy. Hazy is again subject complement. Secondly, if the complement talks about the object, it becomes object complement. We found the reports helpful. In this sentence, the reports is an object and so its complement is helpful. Again see, they called Hitler a dictator. In this sentence, Hitler is an object, therefore a dictator is object complement. Dear students, you have seen basic form of verb. The basic form of verb is called the infinitive. It is accompanied by to, like to write, to think, to do, and so on. Now, the infinitive form of verb is also used in sentence. For example, they sat to eat. It is time to think. He began to run. Beside main verbs, auxiliaries are also important. Often they help the main verbs. They are also called as helping verbs. These are the forms of to be, that is am, is, are, was, were. To have forms, have, has, had. To do forms, do, does, did. For example, I am searching for an answer. I have a book. I do think it is a good idea. There are also modal verbs like can, will, shall, ought, must, need, may, etc. Can is used to make request. Can you help me? It also suggests subject's capacity. I can eat 5 burgers, or she can speak Hindi, English and Marathi. Will or shall helps to predict an event or action that will take place. If it stops raining, we will be able to play in the park. May or might is used to make request or make any suggestion, and ought is used to talk about duty or moral obligation. Though it is not forceful as must, it is certainly stronger than should. You must do it. You should do it. You ought to do it. Now we turn to subject-verb agreement. We have seen verbs relation with object. Now we are going to see how subject and verb work in a sentence and how subject modifies the verb. That is, the verb changes according to the subject. There are certain rules which we are going to revise. You have studied verbs changes with person, as in the following sentences. I write, you write, we write, but he writes, she writes, it writes. That is when third person singular appears in simple present tense. We have to use verb in plural form. We have to attach s or es to the verb. Secondly, the verb changes its number according to the number of the subject. If subject is in plural, verb should also agree with the subject and should be in plural. For example, the player is in the stadium, but the players are in the stadium. Here in the second sentence, the subject is in plural, so the verb is also in plural. There are certain rules on subject-verb agreement. First, see an example. Mugdha or Tejas has to do the verb. Look, in this sentence there are apparently two subjects. But you have also noticed that they are linked with or. That is to say, either Mugdha has to do work or Tejas has to do work. Though two subjects are linked, they are not made plural. So, the verb should be has, not its plural have. Sometimes two words joined with and are treated as singular. Just see in the following sentence. Bread and butter is a good breakfast. Here, bread and butter are treated as food. Again, sometimes when two nouns starting with an article the are joined with and, then also the subject is treated as singular. The philosopher and poet has written the epic. Here, article the unifies two nouns for a single subject. Therefore, the subject is treated as singular. When two nouns come together with and, each one carrying the, then the subject is taken as plural and so the verb is also taken as plural. For example, the landlord and the tenant of this building are good people. When a noun expresses quantity or amount as one unit, then verb should also be in singular. Nowadays, 10 rupees is nothing, or a lot of water has been wasted. Again, we use a singular verb with distances, period of times, or sums of money when considered as a unit. For example, 100 meters is the distance to be covered. 10 years is a long time. The auxiliary or helping verb were is to be used instead of was to express a wish. For example, I wish it were true, but I know it is an impossible thought. If grandfather were alive, he would have been so proud. These are some of the rules of subject-verb agreement. Hope you have understood the verbs and have taken notes. Be diligent in your studies. Thank you. Have a beautiful day.